Welcome to Billerica Public Library's Book Buzz October publications. Listen to find out about some of the latest novels that Billerica Public Library and Merrimack Valley Consortium have purchased for your reading enjoyment. Our first genre is historical fiction. The Vanished Days by Susanna Kersley. In the autumn of 1707, old enemies from the Highlands to the borders are finding common ground as they join to protest the new union with England. At the same time, the French are preparing to launch an invasion to bring the young exiled Jacobite king back to Scotland to reclaim his throne. And in Edinburgh, the streets are filled with discontent and danger. Queen Anne's commissioners seeking to calm the situation have begun paying out money sent up from London to settle the losses and wages owed to those Scots who took part in the disastrous Darien expedition 8 years earlier, an ill-fated venture that left Scotland all but bankrupt. When the young widow of a Darien sailor comes forward to collect her husband's wages, her claim is challenged. One of the men assigned to investigate has only days to decide if she's honest or if his own failings are blinding him to the truth. Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan. Meg's Devonshire is brilliant with numbers and equations, on a scholarship at Oxford and dreams of solving the greatest mysteries of physics. She prefers the dependability of facts, except for one. The younger brother she loves with all of heart doesn't have long to live. When George becomes captivated by a brand new book called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and begs her to find out where Narnia came from, there's no way she can refuse. Despite her shyness about approaching the famous author, Meg soon finds herself taking tea with the Oxford Don and his other brother, imploring them for answers. What she receives instead are more stories of Jack Lewis's life, which she takes home to George. Why won't Mr. Lewis just tell her plainly what George wants to know? The answer will reveal to Meg many truths about science and math cannot, and the gift she thought she was giving to her brother, the story behind Narnia, turns out to be his gift to her, instead, hope. Three Sisters by Heather Morris. Against all odds, three Slovakian sisters have survived years of imprisonment in the most notorious death camp in Nazi Germany, Auschwitz. Livia, Magna, and Sibi have clung together, nearly died from starvation and overwork, and the brutal whims of the gods in this place of horror. But now, the Allies are closing in, and the sisters have one last hurdle to face: the death march from Auschwitz, as the Nazis tried to erase any evidence of prisoners held there. Due to a last-minute stroke of luck, the three of them are able to escape formation and hide in the woods for days before being rescued. And this is where the story begins. From there, the three sisters travel to Israel, to their new home. But the battle for freedom takes on new forms. Livia, Magna, and Sibi must face the ghost of their past and some secrets that they have kept from each other to find true peace and happiness. The Lincoln Highway by Amor Tolls. In June 1954, 18-year-old Emmett Watson is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the juvenile work farm where he has just served 15 months for involuntary manslaughter. His mother long gone, his father recently deceased, and the family found foreclosed upon the bank. Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother Billy and head to California where they can start their lives anew. But when the warden drives away, Emmett discovers that two friends from the work farm have hidden themselves in the trunk of the warden's car. Together, they have hatched an altogether different plan for Emmett's future, one that will take them all on a fateful journey in the opposite direction, to the city of New York. Our second genre is cultural fiction. Go Home, Ricky by Gene Crack. After 7 years on the semi-pro wrestling circuit, Ricky Two Hatchet, a.k.a. Richard Powell, needs one last match before he gets called up to the big leagues. Unlike some wrestlers who only play the stereotype, Ricky believes he comes by his persona honestly. He's half white and half Native American, even if he's never met his father. But the night of the match in Omaha, Nebraska, something screws in their intricate choreography sets him on a course for disaster. He finishes with the neck injury that leaves him in a restrictive brace and a video already going viral. His spewing profanities and his ex-partner Johnny America injury aside, he's out of the league. Without a routine or an identity, Ricky spirals downward, finally setting off to learn about his father, and what he finds will explode everything he knows about who he is as a man, a friend, a son, a partner, and a wrestler. When Two Feathers Fell from the Sky by Margaret Verble. Two Feathers, a young Cherokee horse diver on loan to Glendale Park Zoo from a Wild West show, is determined to find her own way in the world. Two's closest friend at Glendale is Hank Crawford, who loves horses almost as much as she does. He is part of a high-achieving, land-owning black family. Neither Two nor Hank fit easily into the highly segregated society of 1920s Nashville. When disaster strikes during one of Two's shows, strange things start to happen at the park. Versions of an ancient past begin to surface, apparitions appear, and then the hippo falls mysteriously ill. At the same time, Two dodges her unsettling lurking admirer and the bonds with Clive, Glendale zookeeper and World War I veteran who is haunted, literally, by horrific memories of war. To get to the bottom of it, an electric cast of park performers, employees, and even the wealthy stakeholders must come together. My Monticello by Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. My Monticello tells of a diverse group of Charlottesville's neighbors fleeing violent white supremacists, led by Nanasha, a young black descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. They seek refuge in Jefferson's historic plantation home in a desperate attempt to outlive the long foretold racial and environmental unraveling within the nation. Our third genre is fantasy. Once More Upon a Time by Roshni Chosky. Once upon a dream, there was a prince named Ambrose and a princess named Amalda who loved each other, but alas, no more. What a witch takes, a witch does not give back. Their friends and family won. They resigned themselves to their loveless fate. A year and a day pass, and then their story truly begins. Embark on a perilous journey with Imelda and Ambrose as they brave magical landscapes and enchanted creatures on their quest to reclaim their heart's desire. But first, they must remember what that is. Child of Light by Terry Brooks. At 19, Oris Apton Gregg has led an unusual life. Since the age of 15, she has been trapped in a Citizen prison. Why? She does not know. She has no memories of her past beyond the vaguest of impressions. All she knows is that she's about to age out of the children's prison, and rumors say that the adult version is far, far worse. So she and some friends stage a desperate escape into the surrounding wastelands, and it is here that our journey of discovery begins, for she is rescued by an unusual stranger who claims to be Fae, a member of a magical race that Aris had thought to be no more than legend. Odder still, he seems to think she is one as well, although the two look nothing alike. But the strangest of all is when he brings her to his wondrous homeland, she begins to suspect that he is right. Yet, how could a woman who looks entirely human be a magical being herself? The Book of Magic by Alice Hoffman. The Owens family has been cursed in the matters of love for over 300 years, but all of that is about to change. The novel begins in a library, and the best place for a story to be conjured, when beloved Aunt Jet Owens hears that the Death Watch beetle and knows that she only has 7 days to live. Jet is not the only one in danger. The curse is already at work. A frantic attempt to save a young man's life spurs three generations of the Owens women and one long lost brother to use their unusual gifts to break the curse as they travel from Paris to London to the English countryside where their ancestor Maria Owens first practiced the unnamed art. The younger generation discovers secrets that have been hidden from them in matters of both magic and love by Sally, their fiercely protective mother. As Kylie Owens uncovers the truth about who she is and what her own dark powers are, her Aunt Franny comes to understand that she is ready to sacrifice everything for her family. And Sally Owens realizes she is willing to give up everything for love. Our fourth genre is science fiction. Trashlands by Alison Stein. A few generations from now, the coastlines of the continent have been redrawn by floods and tides. Global powers have agreed to not produce any new plastics, and what is left has become valuable. Garbage is currency. In the region-wide junkyard that Appalachia has become, Coral is a plucker, pulling plastics from the rivers and woods. She stuck in Trashlands, a dump name for a strip club at its edge where the local women dance for endless loop of strangers and the club's violent owner rules as unofficial mayor. Amid the polluted landscape, Coral works desperately to save up enough to rescue her child from the recycling factories where he is forced to work. In her stolen free hours, she does something that seems impossible in this place. Coral makes art. When a reporter from a struggling city on the coast arrives in Trashlands, Coral is presented with an opportunity to change her life. But is it possible to choose a future for herself? Femlandia by Christina Dackler. Miranda Reynolds always thought she would rather die than live in Femlandia, but that was before the country sank into total economic collapse, and her husband walked out in the harshest, most permanent way, leaving her and her 16-year-old daughter with nothing. The streets are full of looting, robbing, and killing, and Miranda and Emma no longer have much choice. Either starve and risk getting murdered or find safety. And so they set off for Finlandia, the woman-only colony Miranda's mother, Wynne Summers, established decades ago. Although Wynne is no longer in the spotlight, her protege Jen Jones has taken Finlandia to new heights. The off-grid colonies are secluded, self-sufficient, and thriving. And Emma is instantly enchanted by this idea of a safe haven. But something is not right. There are no men allowed in the colony, but babies are being born, and they're all girls. Miranda discovers just how the all-woman community is capable of enduring, and it leads her to question how far her mother went to create this perfect, thriving, horrifying society. Our fifth genre is romance. Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. Emmy Hollow is a witch, but not a very powerful one, in part because she hasn't been home to the magical town of Thistle Grove in years. Her self-imposed exile has a lot to do with the complicated family history and a desire to forge her own way in the world. And only the very tiniest bit to do with Garth Blackmore, the heir to the most powerful magical family in town and the casual breaker of hearts and the destroyer of dreams. But when a spell-casting tournament that her family serves as arbiters for approaches, it turns out the pull of tradition, or the truly impressive parental guilt trip that comes with it, is strong enough to bring Emmy back. She's determined to do her family duty, spend some quality time with her best friend Lyndon Thorne, and get back to her real life in Chicago. On her first night home, Emmy runs into Tyler, an all-around badass adept in the darker magical arts, who is fresh off a bad breakup with Garth Blackmore. Tyler had let herself be charmed, only to discover that Garth was seeing Lyndon, unbeknownst to either of them. And now she and Lyndon want revenge. Only one question stands: is Emmy in? The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. When chef Charlie Goodwin gets hit on the head on an LA set of her reality baking show, she loses a lot more than consciousness. She also loses her ability to taste and smell, both critical to her success as show judge. Meanwhile, Charlie's identical twin Cass is frantically trying to hold her own life together back in their quaint mountain hometown while running the family's bustling bakery and dealing with her ex, who won't get the memo that they're over. With only days until Christmas, a desperate Charlie asks Cass to do something they haven't done since they were kids: switch places. Looking for her own escape from reality, Cass agrees, but temporarily training lives proves more complicated than they imagined, especially when rugged firefighter Jake Greenman and gorgeous physician assistant Miguel Rodriguez are thrown into the mix. Will the twins' identity swap be a recipe for disaster, or does it have all the right ingredients for getting their lives back on track? Well Matched by Jen DeLuca. Single mother April Parker has lived in Willow Creek for 12 years with a wall around her heart. On the verge of being an empty nester, she decides to move on from quaint little town and asks her friend Mitch for his help with some improvement projects to get ready for selling her house. Mitch Malone is known for being the life of every party, but mostly for the attire he wears to the local Renaissance fair, a kilt and not much else, that shows off his muscled form to perfection. While he agrees to help April, he needs a favor too. She'll pretend to be his girlfriend at an upcoming family dinner so that he can avoid the lectures about settling down and having a more serious career than a high school coach and gym teacher. April reluctantly agrees, but when dinner turns into a weekend trip, it becomes hard to tell what's real and what's been just for show. But when the weekend ends, so must their freak relationship. As summer begins, the Renaissance Fair returns to Willow Creek, and April volunteers for the first time. When Mitch's family shows up unexpectedly, April pretends to be Mitch's girlfriend again. It doesn't feel so fake anymore. Despite their obvious connection, April insists they've just been putting on an act. But when there's a chance for something real, she has to decide whether to change her plans and open her heart for the kilt-wearing hunk who might just be the love of her life. One Christmas Wish by Brenda Jackson. Vaughn Miller's Wall Street career was abruptly ended by a wrongful conviction and in 2 years in prison. Since then, he's returned to his hometown, kept his head down, and forged a way forward. When he is exonerated and his name cleared, he feels he can hold his head up once again. Maybe even talk to the beautiful cafe owner who sets his blood to simmering. Sierra Crane escaped a disastrous marriage, barely. She and her 6-year-old goddaughter have returned to the only place that feels like home. Determined to make it on her own, Sierra opens a soup cafe. Complications is the last thing she needs, but the moment Vaughn walks into her cafe, she can't keep her eyes off smoldering Lona. When they give in to their attraction, what Sierra thought would be a one-time thing becomes so much more. Vaughn knows she's the one. Sierra can't deny the way Vaughn makes her feel, but she's burned before. With Christmas approaching, Vaughn takes a chance to prove his love, and it'll be up to Sierra to decide if one Christmas wish, true happiness, will come true. Our sixth genre is mystery and suspense. Murder at Malin Hall by Colleen Cambridge. Tucked away among Devon's rolling green hills, Malin Hall combines the best of English tradition with the modern conveniences of 1930. Housekeeper Felinda Bright, as efficient as she is personable, manages the large household with an iron fist and her very elegant glove. In one respect, however, Malin Hall stands far apart from other picturesque country houses. The manor is home to archaeologist Max Mallowan and his famous wife, Agatha Christie. Philandra is both loyal to and protective of crime writer who is much friend as an employer. A fan of detective fiction, Philinda has yet to find a gentleman in real life half as fascinating as Mrs. Agatha's Belgian hero, Hercule Poirot. But though accustomed to murder and its methods as frequent topics of conversation, Philinda is unprepared for a sight of a very real, very dead body on the library floor. A former Army nurse, Linda reacts with practical common sense and a great deal of curiosity. It soon becomes clear that the victim arrived at Mallowan Hall under false pretenses during a weekend party. Now, Belinda not only has a household of demanding guests on her hands, along with a distracted, anxious staff, but hordes of reporters camping outside, when another dead body is discovered, this time one of her housemaids. Belinda decides to follow in Poirot's footsteps to determine which of the guests is the killer. With the help from the village's handsome physician, Dr. Bratt, Mr. Double the butler, along with other household staff, Belinda assembles the clues. Yet she is all too aware that a killer must still be close at hand and poised to strike again. And only Philanda's wits will prevent her own story from coming to an abrupt end. Gated Prey by Lee Goldberg. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Detective Eve Ronan and her soon-to-retire partner, Duncan Pavoni, are running a 24/7 sting in a guard-gated enclave of palatial homes in Calabasas. Their luxury McMansion is a honey trap set to lure in the violent home invaders terrorizing the community. The trap works, leaving 3 intruders dead, a body count that nearly includes Eve and Duncan. Eve's bosses are eager to declare the case closed, but there are too many unanswered questions for her to let go. Was the trap actually for her? Bloody payback for Eve's very public takedown of a clique of corrupt deputies? Or is there even a deadlier secret lurking behind those wealthy gates? Eve's refusal to back down and her relentless quest for the truth make her both the hunter and the prey. Grave Reservations by Sherry Priest. Meet Lydia Foley, devoted friend, struggling travel agent, and inconsistent psychic. When Lydia, sole proprietor of Foley's Flights of Fancy, impulsively rebooks Seattle PD detective Grady Merritt's flight, her life changes in ways she couldn't have predicted. After watching his original plane blow up from the safety of the airport, Grady realizes that Lydia's special abilities could help him with the cold case he just can't crack. Despite her scattershot premonitions, she agrees for a secret reason. Her fiancé's murder remains unsolved. Lydia's psychic abilities couldn't help the case several years before, but she's been honing her skills and drawing a crowd at her favorite spa open mic nights, where she performs clairvoyant karaoke, singing whatever song comes to mind when she holds people's personal effects. Now joined by a ragtag group of bar patrons and pals alike, Lydia and Grady set out to catch a killer and learn how the two cases that haunt them have more in common than they ever suspected. The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. Practical and unassuming Jane Shuringfield has done the calculations and decided that the most secure path forward is this: a husband in a marriage of convenience who will allow her to remain independent and occupied with meaningful work. Her first choice, the dashing but reclusive Dr. Augustine Lawrence, agrees to her proposal with only one condition: that she must never visit Linridge Hall, his crumbling family manor outside of town. Yet, on their wedding night, an accident strands her at his door in a pitch black rainstorm, and she finds him changed. Gone is the bold, courageous surgeon, and in his place is a terrified, paranoid man, one who cannot tell reality from nightmare. The fears Jane is an apparition come to haunt him. By morning, Augustine is himself again, but Jane knows something is deeply wrong at Linridge Hall and with the man she has so hastily bound her safety to. April in Spain by John Banville. Don't disturb the dead. On the coast of San Sebastian, Spain, Dublin pathologist Quirk is struggling to relax despite the beaches, cafes, and the company of his lovely wife. When he glimpses a familiar face in the twilight at La Acura's bar, it's hard at first to tell whether his imagination is just running away with him. Because this young woman can't be April Latimer. She was murdered by her brother years ago, the conclusion to an unspeakable scandal that shook one of Ireland's foremost political dynasties. Unable to ignore his instincts, Quirk makes a call back home to Ireland, and soon Detective St. John Strafford is dispatched to Spain. But he's not the only one en route. A relentless hitman is on the hunt for his latest prey, and the next victim might be Quirk himself. Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger. Think twice before you swipe. She met him through a dating app, an intriguing picture on the screen, a date at a downtown bar. What she thought might be just a quick hookup quickly became much more. She fell for him hard. It happens sometimes. A powerful connection with a perfect stranger takes you by surprise. Could it be love? But then, just as things were getting real, he stood her up. Then he disappeared. Profiles deleted, phone disconnected. She was ghosted. Maybe it was her fault. She shared too much too fast. But isn't that always what women think? That they're the ones to blame? Soon she learns there were others, girls who thought they were in love, girls who later went missing. She's been looking for a connection, and now she's looking for answers. Chasing a digital trail into his dark past and hers, she finds herself on a dangerous hunt, and she's not sure whether she's the predator or the prey. Our last genre is nonfiction. A Book of Hope by Jane Goodall. Drawing on decades of work that has helped expand our understanding of what it means to be human and what we all need to do to help build a better world. The Book of Hope touches on vital questions, including: how do we stay hopeful when everything seems hopeless? How do we cultivate hope in our children? What is the relationship between hope and action? Filled with moving and inspirational stories and photographs from Jane Goodall's remarkable career, The Book of Hope is a deeply personal conversation with one of the most beloved figures in the world today. Redemption of Bobby Love by Bobby and Shovel Love. Bobby and Shovel Love were living in Brooklyn, happily married for decades, when the FBI and NYPD appeared in their door demanding to know from Bobby, in front of his shocked wife and children, "What is your name? No. What's your real name?" Bobby's 38-year secret was out. As a black child in the Jim Crow South, Bobby found himself in illegal trouble before his 14th birthday. Sparked by the desperation he felt in the face of limited options and the pull of the streets, Bobby became a master thief. He soon found himself facing a 30-year prison sentence. But Bobby was smarter than his jailers. He escaped, fled to New York, changed his name, and started a new life as Bobby Love. During that time, he worked multiple jobs to support his wife and their growing family, coached Little League, attended church, took his kids to Disneyland. and led an otherwise normal life. Then it all came crashing down. The Genome Defense by George L. Contreras. When Chris Hansen, an ACLU lawyer, learned that the U.S. government was issuing patents for human genes to biotech companies, his first thought was, how can a corporation own what makes us who we are? Then he discovered that women were being charged huge fees to test for breast and ovarian cancer, all because Myra Genetics had patented the famous BRCA genes, so he sued them. His book is both an intimate look at cancer survivors whose lives have been affected by this case and a sweeping investigation into the fallout from our technological age of discovery. Flesh and Blood by N. West Moss. I drive and say to myself, if I am dying, if this is how I die, then this is how I die. When N. West Moss finds herself bleeding uncontrollably in the middle of writing class, she drives herself to the hospital. Doctors are baffled, but eventually a diagnosis, hemoglobin, is determined and a hysterectomy is scheduled. We follow Moss through her surgery, complications, and recovery as her thoughts turn to her previous struggles with infertility, to grief and healing, to what it means to leave a legacy. But Moss discovers that there are other ways besides having children to make a mark, and that grief is not a stopping place, but a companion that travels along with us through everything, even happiness. Letter to a Stranger by Colleen Kinder. When Colleen put out a call for authors to write a letter to a stranger who haunts you, she opened the floodgates. The responses, intimate and addictive, all in the form of letters, all written in second person, began pouring in. These short, insightful essays by today's best literary minds are organized around such themes as gratitude, wonder, farewell, and guide us both across the globe and through the mysteries of human connection. Smile by Sarah Rule. With a play opening on Broadway and every reason to smile, Sarah Rule has just survived a high-risk pregnancy when she discovers the left side of her face is completely paralyzed. She is assured that 90% of Bell's palsy patients see spontaneous improvement and experience full recovery, like Rule's own mother. But Sarah is the unlucky 10%. And for a woman, wife, mother, and an artist working in theater, the paralysis and the disconnection between the interior and exterior brings significant and specific challenges. So Rule begins an intense decade-long search for a cure while grappling with the reality of her new face, one that, while recognizable her own, is incapable of accurately communicating feelings or intentions.